Hello guys, I'm going to do a little workshop on specificity of training and specific exercise design. You might hear some talking in the background. Jamie's treating Eric over here. But I'm going to use the sport of hockey today to talk a little bit about some of the different things from a loading perspective that we can do to create specific demand. Okay, so when we look at hockey, there's kind of two things that we want to really work on from a strength perspective. One is obviously the hockey stride, the production of force in the hockey stride, and the other one is the ability to actually produce force in a shot. So there's a rotational demand in that sport, and there's also that glide drive demand. So when we look at the skating stride is actually, the force of the skating stride comes more from the front glide leg than it actually does from the actual push leg. Now obviously there's push production, but the reality is if I can't get over that foot and be solid on top of that, then I can't extend my stride. So in order to extend my stride, I have to have good balanced support over that glide leg. So we need to be able to create the pillar, handle the pillar, absorb into the pillar. So all the stuff we've talked about that we did in our last workshop on sagittal, running, pillar progression, and propulsion progression, that integration, those are all things that we would be working on to make sure we have in a hockey player. But then if we want to work on that actual load from left to right, the hip slide phenomenon, the concept of being able to get over top of the hips, create that cylinder, and drive from leg to leg, and own that is going to be really huge. So we want to be able to own that, then we want to be able to work it into, can we absorb into it and press out of it? Can we absorb into it and press out of it? Then can we actually load onto it, slide it, own it, step, load onto it, slide it, own it, come back out. It's that lean and load type of phenomenon. Then can we absorb onto one side and absorb onto the other side, absorb onto one side, and then can we take it to a much more distant phenomenon and own. So all of that is a progressive reality, and we can load each of those things in many different ways. If I want to look at the concept of loading the lateral lunge, I can cable load it onto my harness. And these harnesses are always really high value to have. If you don't have the Kaiser, you can work with elastic bands. The only problem is that the elastic load gets a little bit far away. But the idea of, if I want to work on the pushing and absorbing side, I can work on the push away, or I can work on the ability to absorb into with load and out of, and into and now pushing away. So what is it that I want to work on, I can use that load for. If I want to work on a little bit more of a diagonal reality and actually work, step back onto, and then step back into a skate stride and own that, sit and load it, sit and load it, I can do that. Or if I want to add some load into some of these side jumps, either land and load and absorb, or if I want to work just one side and push, just one side and push, just one side and push. So we're using that lateral load to challenge the ability to brake and control. High value to have a cable for that. Now, if we want to challenge the backside leg, we can also use the cable around the ankle. And we can actually get into that position with a slider if we want, underneath our backside foot. Get over top of that leg and actually challenge that going, activating it out if we want. Okay. So we can use that loading, or we can actually load it backwards. So we can be here, and we want to challenge the push on that angle, okay? If we want to challenge that, plus we want to challenge the actual loaded leg, we can take a dumbbell And let's say I want to deal with the challenge of the backside leg and a challenge of the front side leg. Put that slider under my backside leg, take that dumbbell or kettlebell, roll into, back out, now doing a quarter squat or split squat with that activation of the groin. You can also do the reverse dynamics if I want to. Add that load. If we want to challenge the pillar, I can put the load in the air, control it. So a lot of different specific dynamics, challenging that I can do with different loads. So that's a way of challenging the skating stride in various ways, either with torso load or with actual limb load. We can use dumbbells, kettlebells, variations. If we have the Viper, we can add some of the upper body challenge or even medicine balls. We'll have a medicine ball here. I'm going to be off camera for a second. So from a medicine ball perspective, if I want to create a little bit of a lateral challenge to these things, let's say I want to get in, work that skating stride and sort of overload the front of that leg into a little bit of torque, or I want to overload it to the same side, I can, challenging the cylinder and control of the cylinder. I can load it forward, I can keep it up in the air and load and challenge the demand of the cylinder while I'm controlling all the things that I want to control below. So this is a great way of activating the system. The other thing we can do is create some anti-rotation. So with the handle on the load, we can get ourselves in a position where we've actually got to anti-rotate while we're sliding. So we've got that slider position, own it. There's something wanting to rotate to me, I have to control it, and then I slide on that. Or if I want the rotation to come at me from the other direction, I can do the same slide, but now managing rotation over the front side knee. So we just change the demand of the rotation on the system, that anti-rotation while we're still controlling. We can play with the load in all kinds of different directions there. So then if we want to look at the shot, what can we do from a shot perspective? Well, in order to create the shot, we need a couple things. One is we need to be able to close and open that pelvis, okay? So that's a huge part of the shot. And the other part is the linking of the trunk with the pelvis through that dynamic. So it's not really a true rotation, it's an actual link system, okay? So we can get into all the ground-based pivot plank type of stuff that you've seen in the course before. But if we want to start to get into more of a specificity dynamic, we can challenge just the open close. Being here, backside foot, I'm here, and I just close, open. So this, I fixate this backside hand, and I close and open and own that resistance, okay? I can be on 2 feet if I want to, and just rotate into it and out of, if that's a little bit too challenging. If I want to resist the opposite direction, I can put this low. And now I can be working the opposite direction. So now I'm closing in and pulling out, closing in and pulling out, closing in and pulling out. If I wanted to work the same shot that I just did, I could do it on this side. Boom. So I'm loading that hip that I'm actually rotating into if I want to sort of reverse dynamic the load. So then, if I want to actually incorporate the arm into that a little bit more, you can go up into the position, the shot position in essence, over that front leg, and work that rotation through. That close open and linking those two systems together, okay? Or I can extend the length of the lever arm and actually rotate around it. But as you see, when I'm rotating, I'm closing and opening, I'm maintaining where's that front side knee position. So it's the action of the pelvis over the femur that I'm working on, and the linking of that trunk through the whole motion, okay? That's really important. We can also work it from ground up if we want to. So we can reverse the shot. That just challenges the neurological system a little bit to reverse the dynamics of the load. It's really about the loading paradigm off over that front side leg. Again, a lot of the dynamics of power and how these things come with what's the foundation of the movement. So do we have a solid foundation on which we're rotating, or if this foundation's not solid, then we're not going to produce much force. It's that point of fixation. Can we create that point of fixation for the production of force? So in this case, we're working that point of fixation in a lot of different angles. So that's a few different concepts of specificity you can use for cables. If you want to work the same thing from a med ball perspective, if you don't have cables, we can be working that downside open close, load, unload, load, unload. We can work it from a chop into the ground. I won't do it here because we don't have a wall to push off of, but I can let go of that ball, catch it, return, let go of that ball, catch it, return. So I can work on the actual release point through creating that power, really valuable. So that's a little bit of the toys that you can play with. You can also go into some walking lunge patterns and things with either a viper or a ball. An example of that would be a little walk into and step it up and chop through. Step it up and chop through. Step it up and chop through. So I can play with stepping and chopping from one side, or always step the front leg if I want to. If I want to always walk, work that chop, boom, come back up. Chop, boom, come back up. Chop, boom, come back up, like we're working that hockey overload, that front leg. So different ways to create specific demand for you today. A little tutorial to get you thinking about how you challenge the system. It's not all about bench press, squat, and deadlift. You can challenge a lot of different movement patterns, a lot of different toys, and a lot of different stimulating environments. Okay, hopefully that's helpful to you in your development of exercise progressions. Thanks. Sheena working.